What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So hopefully everyone out there who's celebrating Christmas had a lot of fun over the last couple of days. I had a chance to kind of kick back, exchange gifts, eat some good food, and watch football. But of course, we're back here now to go over all the things that happened while I was gone, which did include apparent images of the Switch 2 actually showing up on Christmas Day. So we'll take a look at those here today. Also, we are going to be talking about the writers for Sonic 3, actually talking about a Nintendo property that they'd like to make a movie around. And then we also have a leak that appears to have hit Microsoft and Halo. In fact, we have so much stuff now, even going all the way back to the days of Macworld when Halo was first shown. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the SpawnWave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members of the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with the eShop, which is legitimately just like a grab bag of titles pretty much every single day. I mean, there are knockoffs all over the place, but then there's also quality stuff buried under the shovelware. It's an interesting experience to try to navigate that shop. But something popped up that kind of caught the eye of many people in the press as well as just online for social media because it's such a blatant knockoff that it's just funny at this point. You can see this though over on Nintendo's official website, yes, with the eShop listing for Wukong Sun Black Legend. Yes, it says unleash the legend of the Monkey King, battle through chaos, conquer mythical foes, and reclaim your destiny. You can go through the unformatted block of text here for the description of the game, but this is coming to us by way of publisher Global Game Studio, as well as developer Global Game Studio. And, well, some of the stuff they've made, yeah, looks like the lower quality shovelware that plagues the entirety, seemingly at times, of the eShop. The file size comes in at 338 megabytes, and when you look at the screenshots, well, I guess that's one take on Black Myth Wukong, which, I mean, it's obvious. Look, Black Myth Wukong has done incredibly well, had a lot of people checking it out, tons of eyeballs, tens of millions of copies sold, no problem there. So naturally, you're going to have some knockoffs and ripoffs like this. It was just funny to see it randomly pop up on the eShop in this kind of shape. So yeah, if you want to check it out, you can, I guess. It's $8, but I'd recommend maybe you pass on this one. Also, we do have CES right around the corner here, the Consumer Electronics Show, and it does appear, once again, Sony will be there as expected for a presentation, which they have it dated here. It is happening January 6th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and I mean, obviously there's gonna be expectations around Sony showing up with something PlayStation related. However, it's important to remember that their appearance at CES mostly focuses on technology away from PlayStation. They could still mention it, like for example, at one point I believe they put it into a car. That was the whole thing. It was like a collaboration, and there'd be a PS5 maybe in this car that they had up on stage, which sure, why not? But a lot of times it's like sensor technology and stuff for cameras as an example, things maybe going into AI and autonomy and stuff like that. And that's kind of what I'm expecting here. I think if you tune in looking for PlayStation news, you'll probably be disappointed, although you might get 5 or 6 minutes of something that probably won't like blow up the internet, make all kinds of headlines or anything. So I would keep the expectations in check here for this one. Oh, and we did have an update on what I guess you could call the googly-eyed bandit at this point. I was kind of thinking of Home Alone where they had the wet bandits, they would leave like the faucet on, and I mean, we just had Christmas break, so, you know, thinking about Home Alone as an obvious Christmas movie to check every single year, classic. But take a look, this is over on Reddit as a person, when they opened up their sealed game, he had a googly eye and like a piece of plastic around it. They said they got Mario Party Jamboree as a Christmas gift, opened it up, it was sealed again, and this is what was in there. This isn't the first time we've seen this, by the way, as somebody did post just months ago about their copy of Echoes of Wisdom having the same thing in there. I mean, exactly the same picture, the whole deal. So yeah, I guess there's just somebody out there realizing if you use that googly eye from the craft store, it sounds almost like a cartridge shifting around in the plastic with the board in there. So if you shake, you can kind of hear it moving around, and they're replacing them at the factory level. I don't know, it seems like a mystery that will just be ongoing until I guess we read about it in the paper years from now as somebody being discovered at the factory level. But yeah, it's not really sure what to do other than go back to Walmart or Best Buy or Target and hope they believe you. But hey, if they need proof that it's actually a thing, tell them you saw it on the news and then pull up your phone and show them Newswave with that segment, and they'll have to exchange it for you at that point. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a Christmas Day Switch 2 miracle. At least that's kind of how it was being pitched at first, as the road to Christmas Day apparently had at least expectations for seeing the Switch 2. And it kind of did happen. At least we think it might have. It's still up in the air currently, but it's certainly a compelling case heading into Nintendo eventually announcing this thing, but it seems like everyone else wants to announce it first before Nintendo, so much so that an account by the name of Next Handheld has been sort of teasing the idea that they did have access to a Switch 2, seemingly while it was in the manufacturing phase and maybe testing's going on or just assembly. And even mods on Reddit and the person at The Verge who was writing an article about it said they got proof that at least convinced them enough that this is a thing. So on Christmas Day, we had a couple of images actually appear. Now, these images were like cropped, they were zoomed in, and it was kind of like, okay, this is what we're posting now. But like, so for example, you can see the back of what appears to be the dock on the left side. And again, it's kind of hard to tell exactly what this is. They said, hey, it's the dock. And well, it does appear to have the back plastic shell removed. So if you have a Switch now, like, if you have a Switch currently, like the original one, it has that hinge design on the back, so you can drop it down and look inside and see where the cables go, and then you close it back up, so it gives a neater look. But with the newer OLED Switch dock, you can actually just remove that entirely, and that's kind of what it looks like here, where it's just missing that back shell. Now, they also shared the front of the dock, seemingly, with what looks like the Switch 2 logo. Now, there's been some debate around this. I will save the debate around the naming because this has gotten quite a reaction online, one that I wasn't even expecting. Maybe I'll save that for this weekend because I feel like that alone has to have its own comment section. But we can kind of see the logo here. Again, people have kind of scrutinized this, like, is it completely center? Is the text right? People are going through, like, crime scene forensics on these images. So that's what we were sort of left with for a while. And then they decided to show up with something else, which appears to be a person holding what we assume is the side profile without a Joy-Con of the Switch 2. It also appears that the kickstand is pretty much fully extended, or at least what we assume to be fully extended, pretty far, right? And this is weird. So when I first saw this photo, and I'm sure many others because this was brought up right away, it looked off. That's the best way I can describe it, especially when you start sort of zooming in and just looking around the background, because while I'm sure many people are interested in what they're holding, it is also kind of interesting to think of, okay, who's actually sharing this information? And you're like, oh, maybe I can pull some of that info and deduce some of it from the background. Well, not really, because everything in the background doesn't really makes sense. Like, some of the cables are shifting between different colors. Nothing around them really makes a lot of sense based on the items. And it's like, wait a minute, is this something that maybe AI generation produced? Like, you can go into an image and say, hey, make a background that looks like I'm at a warehouse that's testing different electronics. And it might come up with an image like this, and then you refine it a bit more, do some Photoshop, and boom, you have a background that is technically unique from any stock photos that are out there, but may look a bit off, kind of Uncanny Valley-esque. Well, with that out of the way, people did go through and, it came back as AI generated for the background, because you have tools that can at least try to detect this, like really small things in the background that are just off a little bit. But people were saying when you remove this hand and apparently the sweater and the and the watch, that's maybe photoshopped on there too. The bottom line is the actual Switch 2 device is the point of contention, and there's a lot of belief that what we're looking at is correct. But it's only correct if you flip it or mirror it the other side and flip it around a bit and remove the Nintendo logo. That's actually where we are right now, by the way. It's like a lot has been done here, allegedly, to dress it up somewhat. Okay, so to me, that's like, well, there's not a lot you can really take from this then. If we're going through all these steps and measures to get there, I mean, sure, you might have a side profile of it, but like, okay, why is there a plus sign there? Is that to then interact with maybe the minus side of the Joy-Con, or is that supposed to go to the plus side because it looks off? Because it's been so edited, it's really hard to tell what's correct and what's not, right? Well, then they decided to post the fully uncropped version of the dock, which also looks like it has AI generation in the background, because you can see some of the clipping kind of around the edges of the dock here. It looks off again. But the dock itself actually looks kind of compelling. Like, it looks like it might be a thing. So that's correct. So because you see the back there, we have some ventilation. There's potential for there being apparently a fan inside of it, just based on some of the shipping logs that were discovered over on fan boards. So that all lines up, and it doesn't look, I'll say, out of the ordinary. It doesn't, for example, look like, oh wow, there's definitely a GPU in there because look how large it is for no reason. No, it looks like what you'd expect Nintendo to maybe take the current dock and eventually get it to, like, through just development and looking into some of the shortcomings of the current system and what they do to maybe alleviate some of the heat that'll be created. Well, you have a fan in there and you have more ventilation, and that seemingly is what we have here. So that's the thing. It doesn't really look out of the ordinary or weird necessarily. Well, because of all this, people are now naturally taking more of a look at this person, and they have continued to talk and answer questions. And one thing that caught everyone's eye is this right here, this post. Oh, I actually got to turn one on finally. It's like, oh, what? Now you turn on? It was a series of testing JavaScripts to run to see what hardware it checks for in QA, while some of what I know is through the engineers who have this console. I can, of course, only confirm what I've specifically seen. Now, apparently some of the tests include just QA of, is the battery working? Is the display working? Pass, fail, like just detection to see if all the critical components are working as expected. They also mentioned there's a microphone, which has been talked about before, so that's not necessarily new, but still, that's kind of where we are with this person. They seemingly, again, according to some of the images they're posting with questionable AI backgrounds, have access to the system. Now, why would they be doing that with the backgrounds? Well, I will say this actually makes sense and kind of lines up. Just think about all the times we talked about Nintendo and how serious they get about tracking people down. You probably would turn to AI to try to at least throw them off the trail a little bit with image correction and editing and stuff. So that actually kind of makes sense why you would go this far. But also at the same time, it's like, why are you doing this? And all I can assume is that they just like the attention. It's kind of just fun for them, I guess, because they have to remain anonymous this entire way. Even after all this, they have to still remain anonymous. They can't go, oh, look, I now have a channel, or I now have a social media account where it's me, and I'm going to use this as a springboard to something. No, it's going to kind of end with, really, we assume the release of the Switch 2. So I guess they're just kind of having some fun with it at this point. And now people are just paying attention to see if there's anything else they want to drop, which at this point, it's showing the system turned on. But will that actually give them away? And can AI really block out everything that's shown on the screen? I guess maybe we'll find out, but for now, the images are out there. I will leave a link down below to the Switch 2 subreddit where they compiled them together in the highest possible quality, so you yourself can look through them and run forensics and see what you can find. Next up, let's talk about Sonic 3 and how some of the writers have maybe their sights set or their hopes set for an IP from Nintendo. Now, I did see the Sonic movie, Sonic 3, yesterday, actually, and it was really good. Like, I was going in with, okay, this should be a fun popcorn flick, but there were some really good moments in there, and especially with Shadow, who, go figure, Shadow pretty much made the movie, I feel like. I think the story there resonates with people who aren't even fans of Sonic. Like, it's, okay, I understand his motivation, and I kind of see his character arc and stuff. It all makes sense. And I think some of the scenes and stuff all put together was great, and yes, there was a lot of fan service at the end, but who cares? It was fun. But either way, some of the writers did have an interview with IGN where, of course, they're talking about the movie and promoting it and stuff, but there was sort of the question of, what would you like to work on if you had your pick, if you could do whatever you wanted? And you could see this was actually posted up as part of that interview with IGN, and this one is from Josh Miller, who's one of the writers on Sonic 3, saying, I think another easy one I think we can answer because the movie's already happening and we're already not doing it, would be a Zelda. I remember always when we played Wind Waker, we were always like, man, I mean, it would probably be weird if they made a Zelda movie to start with Wind Waker versus the more classic Hyrule, but we both loved Wind Waker and it's so cinematic. Yeah, so after they make this Zelda movie, I guess we're putting it out there in the world. Maybe we can do a Wind Waker spinoff, and I think that would be awesome. Now, the current Zelda movie that's in development is going to be live action. People are kind of iffy on that. Like, oh, okay, how's that going to turn out? Whereas if you look at Wind Waker, you go, oh yeah, we're going to do an animated Wind Waker movie. Immediately in your mind, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. That would be awesome. And well, of course, there's always a chance to mess up stuff. I understand, especially when it goes to the big screen. But I think the thing that Nintendo could do with The Legend of Zelda, they don't have to interconnect completely. Like, it doesn't have to be a direct sequel. So they could do the Zelda movie and kind of play it up like the games, where they're sort of connected indirectly. Like, the hero of time is reincarnated and stuff, and it's another world, but still kind of connected. And with something like Wind Waker, yeah, you can have it so it's like further. It's like Hyrule's like flooded and stuff, and you're sailing around, but has that distinct art style. I think that'd be really cool to see them jump between these different Zelda worlds and timelines and kind of different ages and set it up that way, because then yes, they can eventually get the point where they have their Nintendo Cinematic Universe set up and they have all these different links drop in for reasons, really, right? It's a movie, we'll make it make sense somewhat. So maybe that's something far off into the future, but I wouldn't mind seeing a Wind Waker movie. I think it'd be really, really cool to at least see how they'd adapt that and make it work in like a 2-hour time slot. But for now, everyone's kind of left holding their breath right now to see how the live action Zelda movie turns out. So we'll see about that one. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a major leak that's hit Halo and Microsoft. And this we can see was reported over on Insider Gaming, where they say a massive leak of Halo content that contains development tools, unreleased content, and dev builds has leaked online. The leak contains around 90 gigabytes of data and is said to have leaked because 343 Industries hired a group of modders to try and restore cut content and data from the old games. This was known as the Dig Site project. Now, it goes back as far as like Macworld in the late 90s, where this person, for example, over on Twitter X, says there's a playable beta builds of Halo 1 from before the game became a first-person shooter. So yes, it's in third person here in the video that they're sharing. There are links to this and like archive and stuff they were I'd still be a little careful with some of that. The 90 gigabyte dump, I think, showed up at first on 4chan, which, by the way, there were a number of things that leaked out like yesterday. It was very strange. Like, for a few, like, there's apparently a Saints Row thing going around right now and some other stuff. So a lot of that's still being verified. And in fact, this Halo leak still also being sifted through by the internet. But when I saw that even the third person like beta build that was originally kind of shown at Macworld was out there, that is kind of intriguing just to see a bit more about it, explore it and stuff. So yeah, the 90 gigabytes worth of data is going to be, people are going to look through it, see what they can find. The unfortunate part about this is mostly coming out and finding its way online. Yes, somewhat through unknown sources, as no one really knows who uploaded it, but also it's from a collaboration with Halo, Microsoft, 343, and the community. And that doesn't exactly bode well for future collaborations between companies when they see something like this, because now it goes, oh, we really couldn't trust the community with this kind of stuff to figure this out and archive it, because look, it all ended up online and leaking out source code, that kind of stuff. So it's unfortunate because it does feel like a step backwards for what should be really, really fun fan projects with these companies. But I mean, if you're Microsoft and you see that, you go, well, we gave it a shot, and yeah, not really something we want to go down that road again later on with other security issues and stuff. So it'll end there. So hopefully this isn't something that really hurts the idea of collaborations between companies and fans like this, but I guess we'll see. Also, we'll see what other things come out of this, because 90 gigabytes, it sounds like there's some really interesting stuff that's going to be coming out. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, which is Game of the Year Madness. And it looks like Indiana Jones at this time has actually overtaken Helldivers 2, and I think is well on its way to knocking it out. Now, we actually saw over the weekend, Neva took out Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which it seemed like a lot of people were just, some people were just voting against Call of Duty. I get it, it's Call of Duty, it's kind of how it is. With a long-running franchise like that, I was a little surprised to see Indiana Jones knock down Helldivers 2, to be honest. Helldivers 2, while it was really big early on in the year, sure, and there might be some recency bias for Indiana Jones, I just still felt like there was a larger audience behind Helldivers 2. But here we are, seemingly with Indiana Jones moving on. So Game of the Year madness getting pretty interesting here. Seeing some of these games recently win, and still got many matchups to come. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Joe, who says, after losing one of my accounts with 200 digital games, I'm kind of hesitant on buying future digital games. Yeah, this doesn't get talked about much, but we've discussed the control that these platform holders have when it comes to pricing. Also think about the control they have when it comes to your online, just your account in general. Now, of course, people may go online and do all kinds of craziness and stuff in different games and other things like that, and it can get you banned. Sure, cheating, same thing, right? Hacking, stuff like that can just get you thrown off their network, and it can get your account just completely banned, even from accessing your titles. But should that be a thing? Because even if you got banned back in the day with one of your online accounts, you still had your shelf full of games and you could play them offline no problem. So that is something else that I think needs to be determined and just figured out in the future, most likely by regulators coming in to figure this out for them. Because imagine having 20 years of digital games, just content, your library. I mean, at that point, tens of thousands of dollars hanging on maybe by a thread, because you could even have a false report on your account. Maybe if you beat somebody really bad in a game, they're like, I'll show them. And they put out a report and it gets you banned. And then you can't play any of your games, and it's a whole hang up in customer service, because of course you can never actually talk to a person. It's just an automated system. Yeah, that's not exactly a road most people want to go down. So that's just part of that digital era that we're going to have to figure out here, I think, sooner rather than later. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed the last Newswave earlier in this week, I'll leave it linked right here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to see the GameCube play PS1 games, because guess what? With the recent emulator, you can actually do that, and it actually runs pretty well. I'll leave that right below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.